Hello and welcome to the Panhandle Primate Podcast. And
The Broken Road Podcast.
today we are doing I guess they call them simulcasts, but we're going to both post it to both of our feeds. So the Panhandle Primate Podcast and the Broken Road Podcast. I am Dexter Kearley, the host of the Panhandle Primate Podcast, and this is
Trent Peterson.
So today we are going to do a little interview of Trent, because you've so far on your channel you've done, like, your first episode was kind of a recap of really the incident, the run up from realizing that there was an issue, and then all the ER stuff all the way through, I think all the way through coming home, right? Was that your first
I think
episode?
so. I mean, that was, and there was going to be a part two. I still haven't been able to make it through that, really. I've been working on it, but I haven't been able to actually push through it yet.
Like, emotionally?
Correct.
Yeah. And so I will give a quick, just brief intro to you for my audience, just for context about, where we're at right now. So Trent is the host of the Broken Road Podcast and the founder of thebrokenroad.org. After experiencing a stroke and the subsequent therapies, Trent developed a heart for healing and was exposed to the pitfalls and the miraculous nature of our modern medical system. The Broken Road Podcast, project really, seeks to help others have the greatest opportunity to reach their full potential.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of how I was summarizing it in my mind, But do you want to give just a kind of a brief, 10-minute, who Trent has been, just your background from, where were you born and then all the way up till today?
Okay, through the stroke as well, or just up to the stroke?
Let's just go up to the stroke. Just kind of just a brief, where were you born? What did you do?
Well, I'll be 48 this year. I grew up in Prosper, Texas. That's where I went to school. It was really small then. I graduated, or actually didn't even graduate, but I would have graduated with about 28 people. Made some silly mistakes back then. Not for a lack of being able to. It was more of a lack of wanting to. Always had a little bit of a problem with authority, and probably still do,
As you should.
kind of ran through it. I was in the AV industry, audio video industry, for quite a while. Was in a couple different bands. And the way I supported myself, the band never supported anything. So the AV work did. We had an opportunity to move to Stephenville about 18 years ago, I think.
And just a little touch on, when you say AV work, you're talking about setting up for big time concerts, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, I got to meet Dolly Parton, U2. I mean, I could sit here and run through a bunch. I don't really like to toot my horn on that stuff, but it was fun. I got to meet a lot of talent. We did, I started with just being a stagehand and pushing cases around, and then ended up being a audio tech, and eventually ended up landing mostly in video, and then I did some uprigging. So old American Airlines Center was 250-foot drop, and it was 140-foot, I believe, at the American Airlines Center. I pulled chain on that, which is basically rigging. We would set up ropes, pull the chain up, hook it up in the top so that you can pull up all this trussing and cool lighting that you see during concerts.
Yeah, so. And that's kind of a pretty touch and go, I imagine, as far as safety and stuff goes. It's probably...
It could be high stress, but you get used to it.
And it's who's the other guy on the other end is kind of...
Absolutely, very important.
Would be very...
Yeah, dropping a toll from that distance is...
that
will kill somebody, and that will get you fired instantly. And I have seen a bolt fall from that distance and put a hole through a stage, so it's not something to play around with.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a big boy job. And so
I was in my early 20s then.
So that was early 20s up until moving to Stephenville. When did y'all move out here?
Year wise, I know that we celebrated my 30th birthday here. So that puts it about close to 18 years ago.
Right. Okay. Dang.
We had a small rental on the in between here and Huckabee and I-20. Grass was growing up through the floor. You know, we came from a pretty good situation there in the city, but we were tired of being there. And the opportunity was here for us at that point.
I know whenever we first moved down here, and y'all were amongst the first friends that we made down here. And I do remember that being like one of the things that we kind of bonded over like pretty quickly, because when we moved down from Amarillo, we moved into a 1-bedroom farmhouse, which honestly was a pretty good situation. It's a pretty nice house, you know.
It was, but golly, it was so. I was amazed at how much. I mean, you had a full family in that 1-bedroom house.
Oh yeah,
you know, that 1 bathroom.
Oh yeah, no, it was cramped, and I mean, it was, and even like trying to find a spot to be by yourself or to relax, you know.
Right.
And at the time, Callahan was still at the house all the time. You know, he was before he went to school. So I do remember bonding over that, you know, and kind of saying like, oh, you know, I remember y'all came over and it was like, you know, hey, you know, forgive the house. But then y'all had both experience moving into a similar type situation where you're like, go from the creature comforts of the city and the convenience and just that lifestyle. And then you move out here and you're just like, a portion of it is like, what did we do?
Right.
You know, it's like, was this the right decision? You're going to have to put up with like quite a bit of uncomfortableness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's like one of those, like you're sacrificing towards something with the goal.
And obviously at this point, you know, 18 years later, it was a well played out move. I don't want to go back to the city. I love it here, you know, and we've done well, I think.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, as the audience can see, we're sitting up in your studio in the top of your shop, and I mean, it's one of those where, you know, it's very easy for people to look at a present situation or like where you're currently sitting and just say, wow, they were so lucky.
Right.
You know, or like it was so easy for them, or it was they have so much or whatever, not knowing the sacrifices and like the stuff that it takes, like the uncomfortable nature of like almost, I wouldn't say it as dramatic as like burning the ships type situation, but it's like, hey, I'm going to leave this lifestyle and I'm going to go to this new lifestyle. Absolutely. And you have to build it, you know, it takes a while. So, okay. So, kind of to switch gears. So that brings us kind of up until the stroke. And so in some ways I would say that a version of you died. Absolutely. And a new version is now here, you know? And one of the things that I feel like it's really difficult for people to realize that there are these like benchmark opportunities to where you can go one way or the other.
Right.
And I genuinely feel like, and I think from conversations we've had, that you feel like your life went into a better direction.
After the stroke?
After the stroke.
I would say 100%. I mean,
which is kind of
a strange thing to say, but yeah, it was a change for the better for sure. And in a lot of weird ways. I'm sure we'll get into some deficits and some things that I deal with, but overall quality of life has changed, and what the quality that I expect out of life is different now. To me, it seems like it was possibly a little bit of like an illusion shattering experience for you. Like you went from having a perspective on life and what your goals were and what was going to bring you joy and what was going to bring you fulfillment. And then this happened, and now you're almost reoriented towards what is joy, what is fulfillment. Absolutely. I was just having a conversation with my friend Clayton that's helped me do some things. And he said if you would have told him a year ago that I was going to be going and looking for a minivan and handicap it, you know, making it handicap set up, you know, I'm sorry, I kind of get stuttered every once in a while, but if you had told him that a year ago and said, oh yeah, Trent's going to be visiting hospitals and, you know, uplifting people and have this positive attitude and living the lifestyle I'm living now, he said he would have just laughed at you and said,
right.
Yeah, I don't know what you're smoking, but that's not Trent. You know, that's not what he'll be doing.
Yeah, it was like a complete reorientation.
It was.
And I think a portion of it too is like you were exposed to a community that you didn't really know existed. And that I feel like most people, unless it's right staring you right in the face, it's very easy for those people to just kind of, I say those people, individuals that are
I was that person. I mean, I didn't see it. I didn't know. I was the last person that was going to go to the hospital. It's like, I don't want that to rub off on me. It made me uncomfortable. So yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to do something about it.
So, you recently started, is it called, it's peer support program, or what is it called?
Peer mentoring program with Baylor, Scott and White. Yeah.
And so that's where you basically have the opportunity to walk in and have an interaction with somebody who's like pretty freshly afflicted,
It allows me that access, that particular facility there in Fort Worth that I work at has a special program, and it's something new that they're putting together. They got the people that work there are really, it's unique. It's not what you're used to when you go into a facility like that. Those people do care, and they're trying to build something different. I think it's super important for neuroplasticity. What happens to you whenever you do have brain damage, what it takes to get back, and having that community, having support, and seeing somebody. I mean, that's what got me here. I'm sure it'll be something we talk about, but with somebody else coming into the room with me fresh out of my stroke and not wanting to do anything and saying, hey, buddy.
That's what I was wanting to get to was, so you were pretty passionate about wanting to get involved in this program because somebody had come to you when you were really in a position that in the moment it probably was impossible to imagine that you were going to recover.
No, yeah, and I really at that point I was wanting to pretend that I would close my eyes and wake up and it was just a bad dream. I was blind. My midline was off. I couldn't see. I couldn't walk. I had to have assistance to
Were you swallowing at that
bathroom. I had no swallow, so I had an NG tube in my feeding through my nose at that point. They hadn't done the surgery to put the peg tube in my stomach yet, so no solid foods, and it couldn't swallow my saliva. So I had a suction device that I had to put in there very often. I couldn't speak very well because of all the nerve damage that had happened in my throat and vocal cords. Everything had kind of swollen up on the side that was most affected on my body. So, I was pretty screwed up. And I just, I think it's kind of a typical thing. Since I've been up there, I've went in and talked to a couple people, and some people really want you there, and some people just are in the same position where it's the worst day of their life. And, you're like the last thing they want to see because it's more of a reality of this is really happening. You're going to have to deal with it eventually.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit of you get to play this role of a reality check. Like, hey, it's real bad, and you've got a long road ahead of you.
Right.
But you also get to show them the hope that in that moment is kind of very difficult to grasp. Like very difficult for like you. I just know from having chit-chatted with you about that specific experience where it's like in that moment, you almost don't want to believe that person. Like when that person's telling you it can get better and they're telling you that you're going to have to work, but that you get out of it exactly what you put into it.
It's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe.
I mean, it's really hard to believe. It's hard to even, your mind's messed up anyways. Your brain's, basically like jello.
Well, and you're on medications.
And you're medicated. There's lots of beeping. There's lots of suffering around you. You're not the only person in that hospital that's hurting. And you're kind of, that door may be open and you see people going by you. It's a tough situation. I give it, those are unsung heroes. People that are in inpatient rehab, nurses specifically. I'll give it to the doctors, but they're not there all the time. The nurses are the ones that see the worst part of it all. So I'm kind of going off, but I'm just saying that because it really does affect. It's the whole thing together,
right?
As a whole, just the hospital's not a fun place to be.
No. Well, and I know you've kind of talked about it a little bit. I've talked about it a lot, but there's fatigue on everybody involved. So the nurses are experiencing I wouldn't say just as much fatigue as the patients.
Right.
But they're living it day in and day out in I wouldn't say it's a voyeuristic type situation that you end up being in, but you're essentially seeing people having the worst times of their life. And that's like your 12 hours a day, right? And it's also when people are in that heightened state of like stress and just that stressful environment, people lash out, people are mean to you, people are, it's just like.
And I was guilty of that.
Big
time.
I think anybody is, and anybody has to be, So I do definitely think that's one of those ICU. Was that
I was
for
in acute care for. This is after I left ICU that we're discussing now, where I'm doing the peer mentor program. Originally, I was in ICU. I actually moved all around. Amber's a little better at telling that part of the story just because was there, for the whole thing. And I wasn't mentally there for a lot of that. But we're talking about acute care, inpatient rehab.
And so that's everybody, right? That's not like a specific stroke, or is it specifically acute stroke care?
It is more geared towards neurological damage. So nerve damage, broken backs, TBIs, spinal cord injuries, and strokes. Anything that is going to prevent you from being able to carry out functions like a normal person, I guess, where you're going to have that neurological care. And all of those, the nurses and the therapy staff, as far as I know, all of them are certified and specialized in that type of care in that facility. That's the step right before you would go to a can't think of what they call it, but it's when you have a nurse for the end of your time, like you're
hospice.
Well, it's not hospice, but there's a step before hospice in nursing, skilled nursing.
Oh, skilled nursing.
Yeah. So the whole there's a lot of talk that can go both ways. You can still come out of it, in a skilled nursing situation, but the reality is most of the time once you get to skilled nursing, you're kind of on that path to the end. So this is right before that. If you can't, if they can't get you to a certain level in that rehab inpatient setting, if they can't get you to a level to where you're functioning enough to do an outpatient therapy or the day neuro program that I went to, then they send you to a skilled nursing program, which is usually going to be at home. Sometimes it goes into more of a nursing home type facility where you have round the clock care. I got a good friend that has had to do skilled nursing. She came out of it, and still working through a lot of stuff, still doing a lot of therapy. But so that's why I want to say it's not for sure that you hear skilled nursing, oh, it's the end of it, but it's kind of related to that.
It's kind of a fork in the road type spot. Like you're either going left or you're going right. Kind of.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean the preferred outcome for everybody is that you're going to be able to get functional enough to get to an outpatient program or the day neuro program that I was fortunate to get to.
So, but like, it's safe to say that you have a completely different perspective on the entire process, having been through it, than you did beforehand. But what were some of your like misconceptions about therapy prior to, well, maybe even during it, but like what were some like your misconceptions about therapy that now you can coach somebody through?
So I don't even know that I really had any a grasp of what that whole situation was or that it even existed. Like I knew what physical therapy was for athletes, and I kind of knew how that worked and what people did, but I didn't understand or ever have myself in a situation or had any family members, anybody close to me that I knew that ever had neurological issues and had to go through that level of therapy. So I didn't have any necessarily a conception of it. I didn't know. I can say that once I did start it, this is something you'll hear from a lot of people that go through it at the beginning, and it's something I would be able to tell somebody that's new and coming into it. There's a lot of things that feel really childish about what you do, and it's hard to accept that the mirror's not there in front of you for you to see what you're really like. You're still there. You may not be able to communicate properly. You may not be thinking very straight, but the person that you were, say, in an instance of stroke or TBI, that person's still in there somewhere. And in my case, I thought I was still, G.I. Joe. I don't know. Thought I was a lot tougher than I was. So, when they had me picking up clothespins and touching colors and saying that's red and this is blue and this is my left hand, it's my right hand, it felt so childish, but those menial tasks I was messing up on. So as the therapy went on, I had the peer mentor come in and tell me, hey, you're gonna have to put in this work. I started seeing that, okay, I'm gonna have to do this either way. So I can either bear down, stop worrying about it being a childish thing, and just do it because I need it. And that's what I decided to do.
And it's like a portion of it's just committing to the process.
Perfect way to put it. Yeah, it is. It's just kind of hard at first. And as I went through the program and got towards the end of it, then I was that person that was at this level talking to people that were, just getting started. And, that even pushed me more to want to be a part of the peer mentor program and start the nonprofit, do a podcast, make people more aware, try to reach out and just like really put a spotlight on something that's kind of gets pushed in the dark closet. People don't like to see it.
So I think it's Men's Health Awareness Month.
Yes, it is. Among many, but yes, that's the one that we're focusing on.
And so one of the things that I kind of wanted to draw a parallel to with that is how many people don't trust therapy or don't think that they need therapy or think that it could affect them. Mm-hmm. And how many people are, it's like, if a therapist, like let's say you go to a therapist and they say, tell me about your childhood. Or let me this or that. It's like, they are so dumb. That's not my problem. My problem isn't this. I need this, right? And you start trying to direct your own therapy, and you start thinking you know better, and you're not trusting the process. Therefore, you're not going to get anything out of the process because you're not a professional. No. Like you don't know how it works, even though you maybe think you understand how it works or think you understand even what you need or whatever.
I didn't have a clue. I got a way better picture on it now, but yeah, that's 100% it. You do have to trust the process. Embracing it is going to make your recovery that much more enjoyable. And I think long-term benefits of that, even if you don't regain everything you want, there's a lot of things that come out of therapy that you'll use for the rest of your life. So.
When I was thinking about it a little bit with just, because we've talked a lot about it and, you've laid out some of the stuff that you were like, I didn't even understand that what the point was. Right. Why do I have to look up here? Why do I have to look up here? Yeah. Why can't I just this? Why can't I just this or whatever? And the whole time in your mind, what it reminded me of was like the Karate Kid. Whenever he's like, wax the car, paint the fence, sand and the whole time he's like, I'm just doing this dude's chores for him all the time. That's and then it comes around and then he's like, no, now it's time to fight and just do what these things that you didn't think had anything to do with fighting, but now you can use them. And I think it's seemed very similar to me for how you were describing it. It was like, no, I want to walk. And it's like, okay, well, in order to walk, you've got to be able to see.
Right.
And in order to see, you're going to have to put on these goofy ass glasses that flash your eyeballs with lights for 40 minutes.
Right.
You know, it's all these things that you almost think are, it's like, I want this.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, you can't want that yet. You have to take all of these steps before that's even an option for you. You know?
It's funny while you're saying it reminds me, I was sitting there and started thinking, reminds me of one of the therapies, and one of them was, it ended up being a lot of fun at the end. But I watched people struggle at the beginning, you know, and we'd have somebody across from us, and we'd have to do this, staring at them in the eyes or find some fixed point. And then we'd do this. And then we'd move or do a squat and move. And I just was like, this is ridiculous. And it was uncomfortable. Then they'd have you do it, and then you're going to close your eyes and you're going to do a figure eight. Oh, it's called Stevie Wonder. It's like, why are we doing this? But that particularly the eyes closed thing, when I did finally get home and was on my own and was out of therapy and was taking a shower here, I was drying my hair and I was standing there and I was moving my head and my eyes were closed, and I was able to do that without falling over, and it made and all of a sudden it was like, that's why we're doing that, you know. So I went back, I talked to my therapist. I was like, is this why we did that whole time? They said, among other things, but yeah, that's part of it. So a lot of things like that over time have made more sense of the little things that seemed so silly at the time.
And I do think, I mean, it is a testament to those individuals exposing you to that. Like, it probably, like they're probably thinking about things very differently than you're thinking about them in that moment, and you need them to.
Oh, yeah.
You need them to understand, like, even something like you said that. I mean, I would have never thought about like drying my hair off,
Right.
and how disorienting. I mean, you know, close your eyes and then you're rubbing, you're moving your head around, right? It's like, if your body is functioning normally, then why would you don't ever even think about something as simple or as like brushing your teeth or like all of these things. And it is, I'm a little bit more exposed to it currently because I've got 2 little kids.
Right.
And you are having to teach them stuff all the time. Like, here's how you brush your teeth. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do this. It's just, you're in that mindset as a little kid with your parent leading you. Mm-hmm. And then you become an adult and you think, I don't need to listen to anybody anymore. I'm in control of my own life. I can do anything that I need to do because I'm the smartest person I know. And then you start to realize, like, oh, okay, well, maybe I do need help. Maybe I do need to listen to these other people. Maybe I have blind spots. Like you were saying, there's no mirror in front of you when you're, you know, seeing you, or you can't see what you look like.
Right.
You know,
you just don't realize the depth of the damage that's been done. And they do, you know, and then that's the other thing that makes it even harder to know the damage is the people that love you and are surrounding you, and the therapist and the nurses and the doctors. They've all seen, either the people that love you aren't going to say, oh, you know, every time they look at you, oh, whoa, you know, like, you look messed up, you know, your face looks different and you talk different. They're going to love you. So that's not being reflected. And, you know, your nurses, they're special people too, and they're just there to do a job, but at the same time, they're there to keep you comfortable. And they see it all the time, and the doctors see it all the time. So there is no, I mean, there's a mirror. You can look at a mirror. There's a mirror in your room, most likely. But I'm not really saying that mirror. I'm saying the mirror to really see inside yourself and realize that you are basically, and I think I said that on that very first podcast, that it's kind of like being a baby and having to relearn everything. So, I mean, you got to throw pride out the door for a minute. And just realize that's exactly what's happening. You're basically having to retrain your brain in a really quick motion where, you know, a baby is learning that midline when they're walking, you know, at the very, very beginning. And that takes months for them to learn. Emmett had a preschool teacher
He was going to a Mother's Day out, and she noticed it, and we didn't notice it. I don't think I would have even taken notice to it. But Emmett would write, and he would start writing with his left hand until he reached about the middle of the page, and then he'd hand the pen off, and he would write with his right hand. Well, it was interesting. I'm looking at it thinking like, well, that's kind of cool. He can use both hands.
Yeah.
Well, the teacher recognized it really early. That's not a good thing.
Oh.
Because you're not crossing your midline.
Oh.
So your neuro pathways are not connecting across your midline, right? So it's the same thing with, a stroke patient or something like that. Is like, I didn't recognize it as a deficit.
Right.
I almost even recognized it as like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing, right?
Right.
But then she kind of draws my attention to it, and then she explains like, no, this is when you have to force them to cross their midline because it helps their brain develop in a different, and it's like little stuff like that there has to be some sort of a training to understand that that's a thing, like otherwise you're not gonna.
And I think that occupational therapy, that's a pretty special craft in its own, and skill. I got some friends that are therapists now that are occupational therapists that have children. I'm interested to see how those children develop, because they are so in tune with looking at you as a whole. So the way you move, the way your cognitive ability, and all of those, they look at you as one big picture. I don't think they get near enough credit. Being a physical therapist, I believe, from that I understand right now, is one of the hardest things in that industry to get to. They're highly, the selection process is really tough. I'm sure it is with occupational therapists too, but the occupational therapists work with the speech therapist and the physical therapist to make this whole thing come together. So I say that just because you were talking about Callahan, and they do a lot of neat things like that. It's wild. Well, the way that they look at a human being is on another level that is really hard to describe. I don't even get it.
They're almost looking at it more as an organism and less as a...
And they just see little things. They're like, oh, well, you move this way, so if I do this and make you move this way, then I'm going to correct this other thing that you're doing, And they're talking to your physical therapist, your speech therapist. They put it all together with you.
Well, I think there's also a huge benefit that they have in viewing the brain as a malleable thing.
Right.
Whereas so much of our culture and so much of our society is like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like, you are what you are. To rewind back a little bit, I think it was interesting when what you were saying is this process. One of the gifts that it gave you was having to put away your pride.
Right.
The process itself refined the pride out of you.
Right.
And that ends up being necessary for your recovery, but also beneficial for you to be a better person in the long run.
So, yeah.
It takes it away from you. It takes some of that stuff. Just to say, like, how we define deficits is interesting, because being extremely prideful, being a workaholic, being super hyper focused on having a lot of money, all of these things are things that our society rewards. Right? It's like the more you work, the more money you're going to have, the more successful you're going to be. And we don't treat those as deficits.
Right.
We don't treat those as things that need to be therapied or need to be recognized as a problem.
Right.
Whereas whenever you're really focused on like occupational type therapy, whenever you're really focused on healing the organism, you recognize certain things as a deficit, and you say, okay, well, here, that's a deficit, so we're gonna have to start practicing things to get rid of that thing, Well, and so many people aren't ever like confronted with that. Like, if I had told Trent prior to stroke, hey, Trent, man, you're a little prideful, man. You're working a lot. You're doing this. You're doing that. You'd probably be like, whatever, dude. You know, like, I got to grind, dude. I got to grind. This is me, right? Like, this is the only thing I can do, you know? And then it's boop. And then you're completely set on a new.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing they told me that I never realized before is that most people are born with some kind of deficit anyways. So we're walking around, you know, there a lot of times you don't even realize it. Subconsciously, you're hiding a deficit. You know, there's something you have. There may be a way you walk that's just a little bit off and is lacking some perfection. It could be the way you talk, or that one eye is a little bit off from the other. In my case, they found out I'm ambidextrous, so they said that aided my recovery big time as far as the way my brain was able to rewire. Because the side that was damaged, I was able to use the other side to kind of heal those things. I'm still having some problems with the left side, but you know, I'm affected on this side. This eye, I have a lot of pain in it from time to time, but I have no temperature on this side of my body. This leg is a leg that we had to do a lot of work on to get it back in movement where I could walk normal, or my new normal, you know. The way I walk now, which I think is good. I'm happy with it. You know, I'm happy to be able to walk in general. But they pointed out that humans in general are very prideful beings. I mean, that's I know there's things about that I will say I think are useful, but for the most part, I feel like it's a sin, and I feel like it is a hindrance on your body and your mind. When you could be doing other things other than wearing that. So you're covering up deficits. That's basically what I'm getting at. Everybody's got them. Nobody's perfect. Body doesn't come out that way. I mean, there's just a ton of things. It could be ADD, maybe just not able to focus, or like I said, walking. It could be that you have a finger that's crooked and your body adjusts. Like mine was vision. So they said most likely my eyes were kind of messed up before I had the stroke. And that I was actually, they said most of the time, if you recover, you're going to come out a little bit ahead of where you were before, just because you're actually aware of those deficits because they show rear their ugly head.
Right. It's kind of one of those things where your gait might have already been messed up. Then you have a stroke, and now it makes it very apparent that your gait is messed up.
Correct. Yeah.
Stuff like
among
that.
Many things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's to the point of, I know we've had this ongoing back and forth where it's like almost everybody, well, I shouldn't say almost everybody needs a type of therapy, right? Like everybody has deficits, everybody has problems.
Right.
It's just a matter of, number one, being in an environment that recognizes it as a problem, and then number two, having somebody with the expertise to augment it. Those are, I feel like,
and being open to it.
That's probably the most important part, right? Is like
admitting,
being open, being receptive, because it comes off as criticism at first. Like, it comes off as somebody being critical about you, or why are you judging me, or why are you looking at me like that? Why aren't you just this? But in reality, it's like, no, you're kind of jacked up, and and to segue a little bit back into our segue, just mention the men's health thing. Whenever I was telling Shannon that I was going to be interviewing you, that was one of the things that she was wanting me to figure out a way of like bringing up or integrating into the conversation, was that Trent, previous to a stroke, didn't need therapy.
Right.
I didn't, you don't need help from anybody. Nobody can really help me. And if somebody was critical of you, or if somebody's like came at you in a critical manner, you're probably going to resist that more than like, no, I don't need that. Like,
that's right.
I'm fine. But then whenever it's like thrown in your face, like, hey, do you want to swallow again? yeah, I would like to swallow again. Okay, you're gonna listen to me, you know, and then that humbling. But if you could have that like that humbling effect without the devastating.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's a hope of mine. I mean,
Well,
that's the goal, is to try to get that out there and educate people. And for sure, for Men's Health Month, we're our worst enemies. I mean, not. I don't want to generalize and say that all men, but I would definitely say the majority of men are in a position of being the main breadwinner, typically, not always. Definitely our bodies are built different. I know we've talked about that. We have a little more strength, so those tasks that take a little bit more oomph, we're responsible for those. So we hide a lot of the things that we struggle with because we don't want anybody to sense the weakness or burden anybody with our problems, I guess is another way to do it.
I think it shouldn't go without mentioning that the demographic with the highest suicide rate is like middle-aged males. Yeah. And it's so interesting because you had a brush with death, If things had gone a little bit different here or there, I mean, it was touch and go, right? And then, but you come out of that experience with like a new life and a new perspective on life and a new direction, right?
Absolutely.
And there's so many guys that they're at this point in their life where they feel like really, it's almost like I just need to hit the reset button. I'd rather just turn it off and then go through, like, I guess I'm trying to draw like a little bit of a parallel with you laying in that bed and then having to work from that bed to like recovery. Mm-hmm. And then when you get out of that recovery point, it's like your life has the potential of being so much more fulfilled versus so many of these guys that it's just like, okay, well, I guess I don't have any more options. Instead of putting in the work to go to do the therapy, to work with the people that are going to give you that mirror, show you your problem, and then you're going to have to put in a whole lot of really hard work, not comfortable. There's going to be, I mean, I know for a fact that there was a whole lot of times during your recovery that you were very uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
But you pushed through it,
I believe God's got grace for us. That helped me a whole lot through my process. I highly recommend that for anybody. It's hard for me to describe what that did for me along the way. But it did take a lot of hard work, and it's not over. The thrombus in my heart doesn't get talked about a whole lot. I was reminded the other day by a radiology tech that actually did the first scan on me when I got care flighted to Texas Health. And I told her that I came up on my year anniversary. I was a little bit, I hate to say it because I've had, it just seems so ridiculous to have any complaints at this point. But the honest truth is that I felt a little discouraged that I wasn't further along in my recovery. And I do still have some deficits. And she said, Trent, do you remember what you had in your heart? Do you know why you're here? Do you remember why you're here today? I said, well, yeah, we're scanning my heart to see what the size of that thrombus is. She asked me if I'd give her permission to talk to somebody else about my situation. And I said, well, I'm telling everybody. So, yeah, as far as HIPAA goes, I don't care. Share it with anybody. So she brought another lady back in when she was done. And because she wanted to tell me the news that thrombus was virtually non-existent. It's still there. I'm going to see my cardiologist next week to kind of get an update on what that is now. But she reminded me that thing was basically like she had never seen anything like that. I should have been dead. And how I was walking around with that aortic arc was just miraculous and kind of a weird, strange deal that I was still alive. And she told me I need to give myself grace. So it's like those, it is very hard for me, or I think it is for men in general, to see the positive side of things sometimes when you're not really looking for it. When I walk these days, I really do try to look around. I see things through a different lens. It's just, but I don't want somebody else to have to go through what I did. I'm hoping that I can, that's my hope, is that I can share it, and even if it's just one person, hopefully it's thousands, to make a difference and help them realize there is a reason to keep going, push on, suck it up, buttercup, let's go.
Well, and it is, it's so easy. I was just having a conversation with Emmett yesterday because we were getting ready to go somewhere, and he instantly is like, well, can I have a sleepover? And I'm like, no, bud, we're not having a sleepover. And it ruins his world.
Yeah, it's all over.
And it's like one of those things where you can overlook all of these fun things that you're about to do and all of this, stuff that you're going to do that's going to be really good time. And you start to focus on that one thing you don't get to do.
Yeah.
And so it's really it's like a thief. I know they say like comparison is the thief of joy, or there's like some sort of a saying around that where, you get so focused on what somebody else has or what somebody else is doing or what somebody else's situation appears to be.
Yeah, it's another bad sin. Envy is not a good thing.
Yeah, that you completely miss the true joy that is like right in front of you. Even something as simple as, hey, take a second, take a stroll, look at some flowers, look at some trees, look at the sky, feel the sun, right? The little bitty things that are such blessings. The wind that blows
on your face.
Mm-hmm.
When I was coming back up here to meet you on my way back up through there, I haven't seen a deer on this property in a long time. The guardian dogs keep them pushed off pretty good. But I saw a deer on the road, and I'm like, on our road right here. And I slowed down and just watched it, and I thought, man, that's cool. But on pre-stroke, I mean, obviously I eat deer meat anyways. Like, there's no shame in my game on that. But I wouldn't have sat there and just looked at it and said, man, that's just a pretty thing to sit there and watch for a minute. I would have been like, it's a deer. Boom, let's go. I got places to be. Get out of my way.
I was thinking about that. I went to an EMS conference, and one of the presentations at the EMS conference was a snake guy. And he had, he was playing off the idea of like the only good snake is a dead snake, right? And like that's what everybody says. Everybody's like, snakes need to die, snakes are bad, snakes are evil. Well, he was like going through all of the good aspects of snakes, about how many animals they eat, how
rodents, yeah.
Well, and then he goes into how they're not. Now, if you're in India, it's a little bit of a different thing, but here in Texas, they're not that dangerous,
right?
Even if you get bit by most of the snakes, I mean, it's not that dangerous.
Copperhead probably be the worst one. Rattlesnake, just because you don't know it's there.
Right.
Obviously, the little ones, they're really, they do.
Well, and he had an awesome video where he had a big rattlesnake on the ground, and he had snake boots and like the snake protectors on his legs.
Yeah.
And he was trying to get the snake to bite him.
Yeah.
He was stepping in front of it. He was trying to piss it off, and it would not bite him. It does not want to bite you.
I've walked over them before and saw them after I walked over. I mean, they're not out to get you.
But see, he has the saying that it says, "Kill the fear, not the snake." And whenever he said that, it was one of those where it just like hit me. Where you can be looking at, like a cow. It's like you look at a cow. Oh, what is a cow? A cow is money. A cow is food. A cow is a living being, right? Like I was driving to town yesterday and I saw a cow and a little baby calf in a field just next to it. And like they both, like just as I'm driving by, they looked happy. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of interesting. It hit me in that moment really, like, man, we as a culture, as a society we downplay the significance of existence so much.
Absolutely.
We
Well,
denigrate
technology
it.
is doing that right now. I mean, technology takes away even this conversation that you and I are able to have. A lot of people don't do that anymore. There's not a down to earth conversation.
Oh, bro, the other night I got so pissed. We went out to eat, and I looked around, and there was not a kid in the restaurant that did not have a tablet
Yeah, that's frustrating.
on the table with headphones on.
Why?
And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, Pete, to your point about therapy, and like these little bitty things can train your brain, right? You can heal your brain by looking up to the left, looking down to the right, it's like, well, you can also break your brain by staring at, like, doom scrolling on your phone or staring at a tablet, or
they're showing that stops neural growth. I mean, there's most of the therapists that I still know now, still visit with. Like I said, a bunch of them were having kids around that time or were pregnant during that time, and now they've had them. But that was an ongoing conversation with them that wasn't going to be a thing in their house because they deal with that and see that on a regular basis, that the developmental issues that are coming out, and it's going to get worse. I mean, it's so weird that we repeat it over and over again because there was a panel with the Facebook guys. This has been years ago, but the original creators, not what's his name, the main one, but they get some of the designers that made it where it made those dopamine receptors pop and all of that, made it addictive. Those guys had some guilt and shame in what they did because they knew what they were doing when they did it, but they had no idea what the long-term implications of that were going to be and how far technology was going to go. So now I feel like that what was a simple start to what can we do with it is a full-blown, like you can't even see it. It's so hidden behind everything. That's in our food and our technology.
It's like the mad scientist, like the evil mad scientist trope. That's literally like what all of them turned into. It's like, okay, well, I can either go this direction and heal humanity, or I can go this direction and completely exploit the shit out of it. Yeah. And they go the direction of like, okay, well, yeah, so we understand the brain now. So let's figure out how we can maximize the amount of money we can get out of these people or how much control we can have over them. Yeah.
So I think it being Men's Health Awareness Month, to bring it back in that, to tie it in with that, we got a bunch of we got little boys, up to young men that are being raised by this tech and these tablets instead of being raised by a father figure that I've watched you be very successful at. To show them what being a man is and being and showing them that being a sensitive man is not a bad thing, and having that connection with others and having empathy, all those things. I've always been impressed with the way that you are with your sons.
I appreciate that.
And I hope that I'm doing that with River too. But I really think that for me, I don't know that I was before the stroke. I know now, that kid's got a big heart. He's not afraid. He wants to be part of the Broken Road Project and get out. Someone in a wheelchair doesn't bother him. Somebody with a disability or with a disfigurement or any of the things that happen. I mean, he just sees straight through that, straight into that person's soul. And that's what he's looking at, is who that person is. I didn't train him that way. That was in him already. I just see it now.
Yeah, and it's like my wife has told me a whole lot of times, anytime I'm getting worked up about stuff, which I do get worked up about stuff, and my brain goes in some different directions, but she'll always just say like, hey, just breathe for a second and like just look around and pay attention to the things that are around you. And when you do, you like look over and you're like, oh yeah, like literally the coolest thing in the world is having like a little kid around. Mm-hmm. But it's so easy to see that as more of an inconvenience than a blessing.
Get frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And say, oh my God, you're not doing this or you're not doing it, and trying to control, as opposed to just enjoying and letting them, they only get to be little kids for a little bit of their life. And
yeah, I mean, yeah, I've seen a lot of things like that. It's also something I just didn't take time to. I just didn't invest any of my time in it, and some of those things I thought, nah, he just needs to learn quick and grow up quick. But now I look at it and I'm like, okay, he's 8. I got maybe 10 more summers with him. And when you look at it, I mean, yeah, 365 days still isn't that much in a year. But when you say I got 10 more times to be alone with him, maybe, if he doesn't move out early, plus he's going to be 16, he's going to want to go roll with his buddies. So I may not even have 10 full summers. But let's say I got 10 summers right now. It's not that much.
No.
And that'll be gone so fast.
In the scope of like, optimistically you live to 85.
Right.
So that's 1/8.
That's right.
Of your life that you have that opportunity to do it. And
yeah, and they don't get it back. I mean, that's Corey and I just talked about that a couple of days ago. That time's a thief, and you don't stop that. And it is that is an invaluable currency. Like money doesn't even that's something else
it's real.
I've learned. Yeah.
Time is real. Money's made up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and there was no amount of money when I was sitting in a hospital. I will grind that to the day I die, to anybody, man or woman, that you can work as hard as you want and make all that money and have all the cool things and all that. But when you're in that hospital bed and you're on possibly your deathbed, the only thing that really matters right then is not being alone and what did I do in my life? And my family. I mean, my family was the number one thing on my mind. It was like, man, did I do this? Did I have this set up? If I'm not here tomorrow, are they going to be okay? It was hard.
Oh, yeah, dude.
It sucked, to be honest. I mean, it was all good, but it was hard.
Well, yeah, and like you said, just the worry of like realizing that the time is fleeting and that it is literally disappearing and you're never going to get it back and you're never going to have that opportunity again. Pretty stressful. Like
absolutely.
And it's one of those things like sometimes I'll get to thinking about it and I can't dwell on it, and I see a lot of people die and I see a lot of people in bad situations and, you always kind of like try to put yourself in that same position. And I've seen some people handle it really poorly, and I've seen some other people that you can tell they've got it together.
Right.
And like the family's just like content or like controlled or present maybe. I don't exactly know how to describe it. But like I've had people before where they're in the middle of dying and they'll like apologize to me about something, Like, oh man, I'm really sorry about that. It's like, I wouldn't be sorry about that at the present moment. Like you got a lot of stuff to be paying attention to. Like my feelings are not one of them that you got to really care about. It's just kind of an interesting perspective shift. And it's really fun to get to see it in people. And just the fact that, everybody, you're going to question if your life meant something.
Yeah.
Like every single person is going to hit that point. And it can mean something.
Yeah, and you see it. You have a different perspective than a lot of people ever get to see. I think we've talked about it a lot that you're, just not necessarily on camera, but that you're built a certain way that makes you really good at your job to handle that. I don't think just any human being can watch that kind of suffering or watch people, that kind of loss regularly and be able to handle it properly. But it does give you unique perspective on life and how quick and fleeting it is. So, I've always respected your opinions on that as well. That's just a whole different.
Yeah. I always go back and forth on if it's a good thing or a bad thing, cause like there's been multiple different times wherever it's just, you get to see this, like maybe the saddest thing that you could ever like imagine seeing. And you have an opportunity to just file it away, or like I can just file it away and say like, hey, I might use that later, or I might have to come back to that later, but it's filed away. And now I'm going to go, work on a podcast. or something, you know? It's like,
Right. And not everybody can do that. I mean, I think that's why suicide rates, just like you were mentioning earlier, are so high among young men, because not everybody is built to be able to do that. So there's a lot of first responders. I think that's why the PTSD in the military and first responders now, they're finally admitting there's a lot of PTSD that goes on with those jobs on all levels. Anybody that is responding to trauma, and I think that's doctors, nurses, all of it. Some people are really good at compartmentalizing, but even with Corey, when I was having that conversation, I've seen that man choke down some really hard things, and he's really capable of doing that. But he'll be the first to tell you that eventually that stuff does come back up, and you got to deal with it. So kudos to you for figuring out however you do deal with that.
well, and I think it's one of those things too where it was so it's largely still subconscious to me because I started doing it at 20. Like I remember seeing, I'm trying to remember if that was the first person I saw die, but it was this guy got launched out of a car that rolled the car and wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and it like launched him like way out in this field, and the dude was just broke to hell, and he was still, you know, breathing ish when we got to him, and it was like one of those where as we were working him, you know, we're finding wallet and stuff, and we look at his wallet, and it was like born the same year I was born, you know. And so it was just kind of an interesting moment where you're just kind of like, oh wow, this could be me. Like no, I mean, it was perfect in that situation, you know, where you're almost looking at yourself laying there, you know, dying. And I don't know, it's just kind of a, you know, in those moments, maybe the less you process it, the better. You know, the more that you can just file it away as just like, hey, it's a job, I'm getting paid. You know,
I don't think everybody can do that like you do it, though. You know, I think you were built to do what you do. I don't think I could day to day. I do okay on it. I mean, as I get older, you know, even being with the volunteer fire department, I've seen quite a few accidents over the years. I mean, that's because I was with them before we even got to where we're at now, and didn't have the gear we have now. And worked a couple fatalities, and for me it was a little bit harder. I mean, it was something that bugged me for a while, and I know some other guys that have a hard time with it too, you know. Without calling their names out, I know you handle it, and I've watched you handle it well. You know, it's not like I try to keep my eye on you and see if there's something I see, but you've even admitted it. You know, it's just kind of it's a skill you have. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah, so everybody's broke in their own way, and my broke is beneficial.
Yeah. But I think it's important, for you to let the audience know that you know, just because you're able to do that, I mean, you're going to talk to somebody about it if you have to, and would, right?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely. Well, and I mean, it's one of those too. Whenever you have most people, have you ever heard the rat experiment where they did with the cocaine? They took a rat and they put it in a box, a little, you know, little aquarium, and then they hung two water feeders for it, and they had like a wheel in there, but pretty much bare bones, and they hung it, and like there's the cocaine in one, and there was just water in the other one. And almost every single time, the rat ended up hitting the cocaine until it overdosed and died. Right? And then this guy was looking at the experiment, and he was like, well, is it really that the cocaine is that addictive, or is the rat just bored? And so he ends up building like what he called like rat paradise, right? So it was a bigger cage with tubes and balls and stuff to play with, and then other rats were in there, and they, you know, because rats are very social, and they found that, wow, you know, most of these rats don't hit the cocaine at all. Like they maybe hit it one time and then they move on, All that to say, I think I've always had really good friends. I've always had people that I've connected with, really good family. I've had Shannon for a long time. And I think that that's one of there's people that have to keep stuff in or have to keep hold of stuff. Whereas I can pretty much freely say whatever I want to say whenever I want to say it. And so it's like there's nothing to build the pressure up in. My vessel is open.
You have a good support structure.
That's what, and I've got friends that I can talk to, and I've got a good body that I can exercise with. And that's what I think a lot of people, whenever they get in their little pity party mindset, you've got to have a way of dumping the water out or whatever. And physical activity is
it's huge.
When our society is lacking it so much. Yeah. So there's so many people that I do think things bother them, and I don't want to denigrate or downgrade any of that stuff. But I also think that there's a lot of people that they're not using their bodies. They're not exercising. They're not burning energy. They're not doing anything. They're not giving themselves the ability to be happy.
I feel way better. I mean, we've talked about that a bunch, but if I can get my heart rate up to a certain level, walking, it's hard, coming out of a stroke or, when it's all work. It doesn't matter whether you're overweight, had a stroke, brain injury, all of that. It takes more energy to do things that were, for me, easy before. But, getting that, getting the heart rate up, exercising, I feel better then than I do if I'm not. Like if I miss a day now and I don't walk, I almost kind of start slipping into a depression. I think about the deficits that I have and what I went through and the life that I'm living now and wonder all these things. Like it gives me that time. But I can, if I stop that right then and get out of that cycle and say, well, I'm just going to get out and go walk. Instantly those things kind of just melt away. I'm outside doing something, getting some vitamin D, moving my body because that's what it was built to do anyways. It was not meant to be sedentary. And some people can't do that. So I don't want to, I've been called out on that quite a few times by friends of mine. They're like, well, that'd be great. I wish I could get up and walk away from something, but I can't, So, there's more than that. I mean, some people can't move. I mean, imagine not being able to move any limb.
Oh, bro.
No,
I mean, and it is one of those things where like it's always been very difficult for me. I do get pity party quite a bit. I mean, especially if you ask Shannon, I'm sure you've seen me before where I'm like throwing a little fit about being whatever. But that's why I think it's important to count your own blessings and not compare yourself to anybody else.
Yeah.
Because whenever I start counting my own blessings, I almost realize that there's nobody I can complain to. Like, who am I gonna go complain to? It's like,
I mean, you really, yeah.
No one. It's like,
well, you don't compare. That's a losing proposition. Always. Trying to compare yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, you told me that before I even had the stroke. I mean, it's like I set really high goals, but I think I set those standards based on what other people were doing. Not my own standards or abilities. It's like,
and then you end up living for other people all the time. You're not living for yourself. You're not doing your own thing.
When I think that built up the high cortisol levels from stress, the heavy alcohol abuse from the stress and trying to relieve that, and nicotine use, lack of exercise because I had a lack of want to. I mean, I did exercise. I wasn't way out of.
Well, and you had a lack of time.
I had a lack of time.
That's the hard thing too. Is really prioritizing. Because I mean, it gets me too. Like I like to run. I enjoy running. Well, whenever I get home from work, it's like, okay, well, I've got to weed the garden. Mm-hmm. Well, I've got to do this. 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 And by the end of the day, I've been doing stuff all day, but I didn't hit cardio. My heart did not hit this heart rate and stay there for an hour. You know, like there's certain things that it's so easy, especially whenever you are successful, like as you were or are, but with like the dirt work, your phone is ringing. The jobs are stacking up, right? It's very difficult to say, hey, I'm not going to do this job right now.
Right.
Because I'm going to prioritize this other thing.
Yeah, and I just can't right now. I mean, it is still stacking up. I physically can't do it.
Well, no, I'm saying even before.
Yeah, but even before, yes, I wasn't. Now I can't. I mean, I was definitely got stomped in the dirt on that. Yeah, with my vision and all that. But yeah, before I still wouldn't say no, and then it was just to push it how it does. And I think what I was trying to get to on that is just the downward spiral of health that I was living. And now I look at it and think, what was I actually doing for myself, first of all, which was hardly anything. It seemed like I thought I was, I'd go buy whatever I wanted to buy there for a little bit or do whatever I wanted to do, but I wasn't really doing anything that I enjoy doing. I got time to do it now, which is weird, but it still takes money to do things. I mean, it's just, you have to figure out something. Fortunately, Amber's done a really good job of helping us out on that. So,
well, and I would say too, like, I don't want to take too much away from where you were at before your stroke, because you were making a whole lot of really positive changes in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like beforehand.
I was trying, yeah.
Well, you were hitting the gym quite a bit.
I was.
And you did have I remember multiple times hearing you talk about, man, I want to make mailbox money.
Right.
I want to be able to start prioritizing the things that I'm wanting to do. And right. Like, so your mind was going in that direction for sure. Mm-hmm. However, it's almost impossible to turn away a good thing, right? So you have people calling you needing help. It's like, well, I guess I got to do that. I guess I got to do this. I guess I got to, Well,
and I think that attributed to me actually having the stroke eventually. I mean, golly, it's weird. I've had this garment that I'm wearing now. I had it for a year before the stroke. I'd watch it and it would sit there and say, my body battery may be running in negative during the day. And I'm like, whatever, this stupid thing, that doesn't mean anything, And my VO2 max, I mean, all of these numbers were in the red. I mean, I was running in the red on everything on this garment. And I'm like, stress is like, it shows the stress is blue, orange, and red. I'm running in the red on that, day to day. I may have one day a week where, I had a little bit of blue showing, but I really thought that was just kind of a joke. Now that after post-stroke, my body's way more sensitive to, everything. So on those days when those numbers do mean something, they absolutely mean a lot. And the more I spend a lot of time reading instead of, going out and drinking or watching TV or whatever. I want to educate myself on what's going on, for myself and for others. I want to educate people. I don't want them to get in that same place that I got to. But I think it attributed that whole cycle attributed to the all the blockage in my arteries and the buildup of what ended up causing my stroke eventually. I really do believe a lot of that all really boiled down to stress. There are multiple things that went with that stress, but I kind of mentioned those, the drinking and just everything that went with that. But it all really centered back around stress. If I look back at it now, and I think that it was Stress Awareness Month, and I had a couple things that I said even during that month about it. I think it's easy to say it again. That I know you do it. Everybody does it. I still do it. I try to catch myself earlier, but getting in this cycle of stress where you're sitting there and you go, did I feed the dog? I mean, I'm just using something random. You're not at home. Did I make sure to feed the dogs? Oh, shoot. Did I turn off the lights? Did I leave a burner on the stove? I wonder if my mom's doing all right. I wonder if how far long is this truck going to run? And you go through this whole cycle and you think all these things, and that this is happening in a split second. But in that time, if you were to actually be able to record the cortisol levels and look at what your heart's doing and everything in that little short amount of time, you're stressing your body out like a son of a gun. I mean, bad. So take that and then do that times 100, running a couple of different businesses and trying to make this thing happen. This is so bad on your body.
Oh, yeah.
To what, I don't know, to what end. I am happy to be in the studio. Some of the things that I did do attribute to the life I'm able to live now. But I have to weigh out some things too, and wonder if there was another way to achieve what I did without having to be, this is my journey, but I hope that I can help others, reach the point that they want to get to, do what they enjoy to do, without a major medical emergency.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, like if you can get the benefit without incurring the damage. Yeah. Like I always think about that with like weightlifting, or like whenever I'm encouraging somebody to get into shape, I always try to really emphasize and really push, if you hurt yourself while you're trying to get stronger, that is actually the opposite direction that you're trying to go.
Same as falling.
Like
me falling right now would be a huge game changer.
And so it's kind of like one of those things where, like, even on the path of improvement, you've got to be careful to not, or to like keep your eye on what is the goal. Like my goal is to have a healthy body.
Right.
If you throw your back out and because you're squatting 400 pounds, is your body healthier or less healthy? Right. It's like, because I think that's the natural tendency of Americans, especially modern Americans, is like, if a little bit is good, then a lot more is better.
Oh yeah.
If I take a little sip of beer and it tastes pretty good, well then I probably need a 12 pack of beer. Right. I mean, it's always that. And I mean, I'm the world's worst about, like a little bit's okay. Give me more.
I don't think either one of us are trying to say that we're free of that.
Oh yeah, no.
There's no hypocrisy going on here.
Yeah, hopefully
we're saying that we're not. I mean, we're really trying to speak in volumes from experience. I mean, this isn't like I think it's something everybody deals with.
Oh yeah. Hopefully nobody has that illusion that that somehow we're coming from a point of having it figured out.
Well, I just wanted to make sure and put it out because I mean, not everybody does.
Oh, yeah.
They don't
know us. Yeah,
that's right.
That's a very good point. All right, how about we'll wrap it up, because I've got one more question that I wanted to make sure that we hit, because I think it'll be an interesting discussion.
Okay.
And it's the journey towards health sovereignty.
Okay.
And I think that this is something, I feel like we've kind of been touching around it this whole time. But this idea of don't just trust the experts, engage with it yourself and educate yourself on it.
Absolutely.
And I've been kind of, well, not granted, of course, with your situation, but with my wife, Shannon, she started eating FODMAP, or like following the FODMAP. And then I've got friends that are doing, hey, I'm going to do the keto diet, or I'm going to do this elimination diet, or now I'm doing fasting or whatever. And a big process of it is like educating yourself on it and taking control of your health as your own thing. So I was just going to see if you wanted to touch a little bit on like your journey of going, of where you were previous to the stroke, and what your opinion on doctors and health care was, and like where you're currently at and where you're progressing towards.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. So a good friend of mine, Brian, I'm hoping to get him on the podcast soon. You've met Brian. Pre-stroke, he was asking me a lot of questions about testosterone and TRT therapy. The number one question, and the thing that they did boil down, like it was unanimous question I was asked over and over again, is, are you on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy? And the answer was yes at that point. I ran pretty hot on my hemoglobin count, and I kind of took a lot of those things. First of all, I just took what my doctor told me as being what it is. I didn't educate myself whatsoever. Not to throw anybody under the bus, but honestly, I probably didn't need to be on it. Come to find out, I had the MTMFR gene, among other things, that my body just doesn't get along with that. And really, my testosterone levels weren't low enough. They were very low when I first started, but I think that exercise and diet and a lot of that can overcome that, and your body naturally should be.
And you were just talking about cortisol levels being through the roof. Stress,
which lowers your testosterone levels, all of those things. So multiple things, other avenues could have been taken, but I was told this is going to make you feel better, and it did. Absolutely did. But to go back to Brian was calling to ask me questions, and I'm like, man, and I thought it was so ridiculous. I'd give him a hard time. I was like, why? Just do it. I mean, it's no big deal. Just do it. He's like, well, what about this number and that number? And he's actually doing the time and putting in the research. He actually got fired by 2 doctors, that said, hey, we're not going to treat you. You asked too many questions, they just didn't like it. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, which I feel like is coming in my future as I go and become more of an advocate for myself. So, I don't know. Do you want me to take a gap on that or stop? I can keep going.
No, I'm liking it. I mean, like it's good. It's just interesting to me because I don't know if we had the conversation prior to you having the stroke, but I've always kind of been against TRT, and I've always kind of been against really any medical intervention that is voluntary. I'm just in principle against it. It's just kind of like, birth control for females.
Oh man, I can go on about
that. There's so many.
Anything that affects your hormones is an issue.
But there's so many things that our society is so medicalized that that's where most people look for the fix. Like most people want the fix to be, oh, okay, I just pop this pill and I'm good to go. Yeah, just take this or take this shot or just whatever, and you're good to go.
Well, and going against that grain is almost a shocking proposal by a doctor when you say, no, I don't want the pain medicine. No, I don't want this. I don't want that. Give me an alternative. And they actually, as educated as a doctor is, there's a lot of times that question right there kind of stops everything in its tracks for a minute. It's like, well, what do you mean? I mean, I can give you this and it fixes it. And you're like, no, I mean, how can my body fix it? What can I do myself?
Well, I did see you post the other day. You posted something which I really liked was there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to medicine.
No.
So, okay, I walk in and here's my numbers. Well, okay, well, I'm going to put you in this category, and you're going to take these pills, and you're going to take this regimen, this schedule, just like everybody else. Because we're all one shoe fits all, it's like the idea that a human is a machine that just came out of the assembly line, and it's like, hey, we understand everything about this thing. We can throw this at it. We can throw this at it. You can.
And it almost feels like there's a this probably loads more into your podcast than it would mine, because it does teeter on the conspiracy theory side, but it does almost feel calculated, that there is this one at this point with the technology and AI and everything that's going on and genetic testing. It seems that it's geared towards us staying sick. Instead of using this new technology you got. So I know that doctors and nurses, and they all do CEUs. Amber still does CEUs for massage therapy and for her training license. So they do, but is that, you do pick your own CEUs, but the testing alone, right now I'm reading on cholesterol. I've told you that. It drives me nuts what I'm reading right now, and the fact that there's a one size fits all treatment for that. when it has to do with your genetic markers, which, like I said, I have that other gene that changes the way that my body processes some things. But a lot of this stuff, at this point, from what I'm reading, can be fixed outside of medication. I mean, it really is a lifestyle change. And most medication, as I read more and try to become my own advocate, I find out that most medications were originally designed for an actual medical emergency in the hospital. So they were meant to get you out of a life and death situation, but they were never designed necessarily to be something that you were on for the rest of your life.
Or it was a product that they developed, and then they did a whole bunch of testing, and they had to find a use for it. So like even like Cialis or erectile dysfunction medications, that was a result.
Right.
That's not what it was designed for. It vasodilated your system, and they realized like, oh well, it solves this problem.
Right.
So let's go ahead and we'll mass market it for this fix. Well, it's like you're still taking a medication and putting it in your body, and it's affecting the whole system. So you're doing it to solve your erectile dysfunction problem, right? But like, why is your wiener not working? Right? Nobody asked that.
Well, how much time on a commercial is spent for the actual medicine compared to the disclaimers and the side effects?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's almost as much time. They have to speed it up. So it's spoke really quick. I mean, there's a lot of side effects to
and
this.
Meanwhile,
so it's like,
in the commercial, the person's walking around like a freaking Manchurian candidate, just looking at butterflies and
living the dream.
Yeah, it is wild to me. It's to your point about it being I'm very conspiratorial.
I know. That's why I said
everything.
So I mean, this is a multicast, so we can go down that rabbit hole too.
But see, to me, it is interesting. It's like how much of it is to empower the individual, like to genuinely empower the person to say, you have control over this thing. And the fact that they don't look into so many other things, like you can, like literally whenever I was in Amarillo, almost every single firefighter that went and got tested, their testosterone levels tested, almost every single one of them qualified for TRT. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if any of them, if that doctor ever sat down and said, hey, how about we change your diet? How about, look, obviously y'all aren't sleeping great. Right. So how about we change your sleep? Mm-hmm. What's your home life look like? Are you and your wife getting along? Are y'all fighting all the time? Right. How much exposure are you, like what?
They're treating symptoms, not actually treating the cause.
Right. And the medical system now, that granted I'm associated with the medical system, but there's so many times where they're so cocky. The doctors are so cocky. The medical system is so cocky, saying, we know what's happening. Mm-hmm. We can explain to you exactly what's happening. Here, this cell operates this way and this and that. We've got to do this, like as if they know. And what I always think is super interesting, and not very many people have talked about, or maybe a lot of people have talked about it and I just haven't been paying attention or whatever. But whenever they test a medication, they do these double blind and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, they have to account for placebo. Right. And it's like, well, what is placebo? Well, if your brain thinks that you're going to get better, sometimes even if we're giving you a sugar pill or even if we're giving you an inert drug, mm-hmm. your body gets better. It's like, man, my blood pressure is crazy, so I'm going to enter in this experimental study to get this medication that's going to lower my blood pressure. And then you're in the half of the group that's getting the placebo that doesn't do anything, and your blood pressure goes down. Yeah. And they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And to me, it's one of those where they almost like throw it out as like to me, that's what they should be studying. Is like, oh, wait, you mean we don't even give this person anything and their body heals itself?
I think that was a cool thing that I learned going through the neuro program and recovering from, as far as I have from stroke. I mean, it burnt part of my brain out, you know what I mean? And my brain was somehow able to reconnect And I say somehow, I mean, it's science, and it's very easy to see what happened. I feel like I did have a miracle that occurred. I think our bodies are miraculous things, and I don't think that half of the weight is given to what we can actually do to inside our own bodies to heal ourselves. So if my brain's able to rewire itself to take a portion of it that wasn't either being used or is being used to do this with this finger, but now that same piece actually branched off and it's making this finger move. If you can do that, what stops it from being able to do other things? And to that point, when I got out, I was already kind of practicing this before I had the stroke. It became way more prevalent after. But I was telling Dad, I said, I can lower my heart rate just sitting here with you. I can lower my blood pressure, but I can for sure lower my heart rate. And he's like, well, whatever. And I said, no, I can prove it to you. I said, I promise you I can at least drop it 10 right now. I sat there, just did what I do, the technique that works for me, which is a meditation technique and breathing technique that's hardly visible, and was able to show him when I started. And I just did it right then while I was talking. I was able to drop it down 8. I looked at my watch before I did that. But it's a mental thing, and if you can do those things, why can't you? I think we're way more capable, and our body was made to heal itself. I think that we've gotten way far away from that.
Man, I went down this, Wim Hof, the Iceman Wim Hof?
Yes.
He does the cold plunges and stuff. Well, anyway, I went down that rabbit hole for a while, and one of the things that came up was this monk. There was reports of this monk back in the day that, like one of the things about some of these Buddhist monks, one of the tests was that they had to sit outside in the snow, like pretty much naked, and melt a circle around them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they could turn their thermostat up or turn it down, or
10-minute circle.
This dude put his hand on a table and he could heat up individual fingers with like a thermal camera above it. It was cool. Like, oh, you want me to heat up my pinky? He can heat up his pinky, right? He had complete control over his autonomic nervous system, right? And at least I was taught that you don't have any control over your autonomic nervous system, right?
No,
it just does what it does, and you can't control it. That's, but
20 years ago, there was whatever you left the hospital with after a stroke is what you were with. Brain neuroplasticity wasn't even a accepted science 20 years ago.
Yeah, and that is fascinating, whenever you start to think about, 20 years ago, you'd be in a bed with a feeding tube, not able to see, and they would have just left you there like, oh, well, he had a stroke. This is where he's stuck.
Yeah, there was the acute phase, and that was kind of where it stopped. So, there wasn't a subacute, and then what they call chronic now. And even cooler, AI is doing a lot. I'm not a big proponent of it. I do think I've watched all the movies, Terminator and Matrix and everything, and I see that totally happening eventually.
Oh, yeah.
But, man, it's doing some amazing stuff as well right now. And they're coming up with some groundbreaking therapies and technologies for stroke survivors. So they are getting, and there's a couple people I follow on Instagram that are still getting, they're still healing and still recovering 8 years post-stroke. And that was considered impossible. And I think I was even telling you about that the other day, but people that have had really bad contracture in their hands and haven't been able to open them because they were in that 20-year deal. 20 years ago, they were a young person. Now they're older. They've been like this. Now it takes a surgery to get that hand to open back up because the muscles have actually contracted into that position. But that surgery does absolutely no good if you can't get back control of that hand. And what they're showing now is that they can get control back of that hand even 20 years post-stroke. It's pretty amazing, some of the things they're doing now. So even for me, it is I'm only a year into it. So, I mean, what am I capable of over the next, hopefully, 20 years? Hopefully I'll live that long,
I remember when it was early on, it had just happened, or, I mean, I think I think you were out of ICU, but I remember talking to Amber on the phone, and she said something along the lines of like, I mean, and it was still in the touch and go stage. And now, granted, that freaking thrombus in your aorta was the biggest thing that everybody was a little touch and go about. I was like, what's this thing gonna do? But I remember her saying like, yeah, a therapist came in here and said that within a year, people might not even be able to tell that Trent had a stroke if they're just meeting him. And it was kind of like one of those things that therapist, I don't know who said that to Amber or, but she had seen that, or that therapist had seen enough people make the journey.
Right.
To where she can say, okay, well, he's here on the journey, but he can get here. And I've seen it and I believe it. And it's almost like if enough people believe something, then it becomes true. Right.
And I'm sure there's other facilities, but that's why at the very beginning of this session, I mentioned that Baylor Scott and White Health there on Harris Parkway. I gladly and proudly support that hospital there and whatever they have. There's something special. Those people care and they have seen it, and they do put in 110% into that healing. And I think that it's unfortunate that all facilities aren't that way, but I think it can greatly either help you or not help in your recovery, depending on what facility you're even in.
100%.
And the people that you're surrounded by. So I was super blessed to be surrounded by a lot of people that were fighting for me that had they didn't have anything in the race, other than just the hope for me to be better. Super awesome.
And I mean I think that'd probably be a good note to end the podcast on. Is it's really the hope that there is a better, right?
Absolutely.
Like if whatever situation you're in or whatever you're dealing with, if you just have a hope, like if you're in financial ruin, but you're like, well, but I can do this, and there's a hope, then it's pretty easy to get motivated. And I mean, like how many they talk about, like, ultra wealthy people, how many times they had been bankrupt in their life, but it's the knowledge that I can get back to wherever I want to be. And I think when you're laying in that, and I mean, now granted, not to give false hope, because there's some people that aren't ever going to get up out of that bed. I mean, we're all going to die at some point. We're all going to hit that point where it's like, hey, you ain't getting up out of that bed. But even in that, there's hope, even in that, there
is always hope. What that hope looks like can be different from case to case. I mean, even if you know that you're going to be taking your last breath, or it feels like you may be taking your last breath in hours, there's still time and hope that you can do something with that short window that you got left. I think it's important to keep yourself surrounded. With wrapping it up, keep yourself surrounded and look who you surround yourself with. It's kind of escaping me right now, but I do believe who you surround yourself with directly affects how you live your life. And if you're around a bunch of hopeless, sourpuss, what's the point, people? You're probably going to be that same person too. And you can only maintain that for so long. So
you're a reflection of the five. They say something like you're the reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or something like that.
Which it's funny you say 5, because Corey just said that yesterday and was like, man, if you can find 5 people that uplift you, that you're doing really good. And I told him, I said, well, that's pretty hard, to be honest. Yeah, I feel fortunate. I know I got 5. You're one of them, but there's a lot of people that don't. So I would reach out to me. I don't care. I'll be there for you.
And it's contagious. It's important to remember that it's contagious.
Yeah.
So if you could be that one of those people in the group that is making it better, or you could be one of those people in the group that's making it worse.
The bad apple's a legit thing, you know. And they say one bad apple will ruin the bunch. I mean, that's I've seen that happen over and over and over again in my work situation. And now that there's not really a work situation, I see it in life. You know, I don't want to be that person. I want to be lifting people up. I almost want to be obnoxiously hopeful and happy for others, and give them a reason to, almost like, man, why? Why is he like that, you know? Well, ask me. I will be glad to tell you. You know, that's kind of my gig now, but I wasn't me before.
Right. So. Oh, yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, that's awesome. I felt like that was a pretty good episode. And so thank y'all for watching and listening. Make sure that you follow the brokenroadproject.org.
It's thebrokenroad.org.
Oh, okay. Thebrokenroad.org.
It is the Broken Road Project, but the actual website is thebrokenroad.org.
Brokenroad.org.
Yes, and then you can find us on YouTube and Spotify on the Broken Road Podcast.
And Instagram. You got the Instagram up and running.
Instagram as well, the Broken Road Official.
The Broken Road Official. And then Facebook, you posting.
We're posting on Facebook on my personal account and on the Broken Road page.
And like you said, reach out.
Absolutely.
Definitely make contact with you. If you're watching on my podcast, reach out to me. And, you know, I think you've been on the last 4 episodes, I think, of my show, and you're going to continue to be on those. So, you know, if people want to reach out to you, they can contact me and I can get them in touch and everything. And
yeah, we're going to be looking at, you know, I'm hopeful this is going to keep growing. We're going to need volunteers, and, you know, obviously donations and the money is going to help, but actually having boots on the ground, as they'd say, or people that are willing to donate time is probably more important than
and get out of your comfort zone a little bit too.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, man. Whether you come and do it for us, there's people out there that are sitting in a hospital room or at home alone right now that need help, need somebody to be with them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people suffering out there, and that it would make a world of difference to them just to say, are you okay?
And then they'll probably say, yeah, I'm okay, and then go on and have a full conversation with you about everything because they just want people to talk to. You know, Not everybody wants somebody to talk to. Well, all right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in, and until next time, peace out.
Peace.
Nice, dude. I wonder how long that was.
I'm going to guess an hour and 40 minutes.
What?
An hour and a half.
I was actually shooting for an hour.
I think we got an hour and a half out of it, but I'll look and see.
Heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're still... Camera didn't... Obviously, you didn't know if the camera overheated right there anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm so stiff.
Oh, yeah. That was a
hour and 45 minutes, bro. Woo!